Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Golden 20s. My name is Tegan, and I'm joined with Sadie.
Hello.
And we're here to talk all about Lindsay Dunn. So Lindsay is a sports and music journalist at City News here in Toronto. She covers all of the city's major sport teams from the Toronto Maple Leafs, Blue Jays, and our personal favorites, the Toronto Raptors. She's passionate about empowering women in sports, a male-dominated industry from the organizations down to the players. So we're excited to talk to her today about gender bias and inequality. Lindsay just so happens to be one of her friends, so we're extremely excited to be recording with her in person today.
Yay.
Welcome,
so
Lindsay.
To be here.
Yay.
You just called me your friend. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So I think to start things off, it would be great if you could tell the listeners about yourself, how you got into sports and music journalism, and maybe chart your career path for us.
Okay, so get ready, grab a drink, people. We're in for a ride. This is going to take 10 hours. Just kidding. I'm trying to do this quickly because I don't know if anybody would find me interesting. So here we'll go. I was born and raised in Regina, Saskatchewan, where I had no idea, pretty much forever, what I wanted to do except for be a basketball player when I discovered who Magic Johnson was when I was 3 or 4 years old. And that's all I ever wanted to be. And I didn't quite make it there. I don't know why. But I also wanted to be a musician so bad. I loved music. I loved singing. I loved playing piano, writing music, all of that other stuff. But I'm terribly shy, which a lot of people don't know. And obviously to be a musician and that you have to share your music with people. The thought of that, I feel like I'm going to break out in hives. So I actually didn't know that journalism was a career. I had no idea until I was grade 8, and an older sibling of mine wanted to do it. I'm like, what is this? And then I discovered that you could be a foreign correspondent. I so desperately wanted to go overseas and report on the war and just all the inequalities happening there. And I do not have a thick skin, and then also it makes you into 2 weeks of researching that, and the world is a terrible place. I cannot do this. There's
that would be a tough job.
Yeah, you want to make better, and you're you can tell so many stories, give so much money, and unfortunately so much is not changing. And I was okay, I'm not good enough to do this. But then it wasn't until I was grade 12 that I realized you could be a sports or music journalist. And then at that time when I was telling people this, no, you cannot do this. You are not going to be able to do this. And this is people in my close family, and these are friends. Girls can't report on sports. Girls cannot do sports. You play them, that's one thing. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Okay, well, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
Then I enrolled into University of Regina's journalism program, which I'm going to say right now, anybody listening, a 2-year pre-course to go into journalism is a bunch of baloney and a waste of money. I do not know why I had to take math and biology and all of that garbage to go into that. And it is such a money grab. I'm sorry. I love you, University of Regina, but there's so many other schools around the world that for me, that does not help them. I have not had to use the math or the biology that I learned in university for
That's
this, or
so
chemistry,
interesting.
right?
Yeah.
It makes no sense, and you have to use that to get into a lot of arts programs, which that is baloney. Okay, and a rant there. So I went there, and during the time, somebody posted on Facebook, and this is when Facebook just started. Dating myself right now. And they're like, hey, somebody posted, I work at a radio station. Does anyone want a job on radio? And I was like, oh, I'll message them and just see maybe. And then it turns out it was a technical board operator. So the person behind the glass, if anybody's watched Frasier, that's been canceled for 20 years or not.
A classic though.
Yeah, I don't even know what show to reference. It has radio. So you're behind the glass. There's somebody talking on air, the host, and then somebody's pushing all the buttons, answering the calls, working the show, booking all this. That was me, who had no experience with any of that and not a technical whiz. So I got that job while I was going through school, and I ended up becoming one of the lead producers on the biggest talk show that was in Saskatchewan at the time. And going to school full time and working 2 other jobs. But when it came to actually go into journalism school, I knew everybody here, and I was still really shy. And so I met a local weather lady. She's like, well, I went to school in Calgary at this program called SATE, and it's much more hands-on, whereas at the time the other program was very much by the book. So I applied there, had to do a little videotape, which it was my first time ever actually doing anything on camera. And for some reason, they accepted me. The program was great. Thank heavens. They also got rid of their drama program because you had to do one semester where you were in a play. And I was a lead girl in something called Ash Girl, which, like, come on, why are we doing this? Like, it has nothing to do with journalism. Like, anybody listening, like, tell me you think this is crazy too.
This is very crazy.
Yeah.
So
I'm
this
like,
is
what?
Like, this is the weird things they have for people to do. And, like, clearly I got to stay on topic here. But I love that program. I still was working at the radio station during the time. And when I got to do the sports there, and I was for the college like credits, I was able to cover like the Calgary Flames and the Calgary Hitmen. And that I just remember my first time interviewing an athlete. Like, I didn't know what to do with myself. Is this real that I'm actually talking to this person I see on TV that's worked so hard for that, and how cool it was. And then it was time for internships. I applied at a place called CTV Yorkton, which I think is about an hour outside of Regina, Saskatchewan. I cannot remember because it's been a moment. And then I was there for a month, and I was reporting on livestock and the agribition, which is like a huge thing for people to come and talk about farm equipment, which I'll be honest, I knew nothing about. So that was a great old learning curve for 1 month and trying to like make people interested in it and me act like I know what I'm talking about. But then I got offered a job at CTV Regina out of that because it was a bureau of it. I started off as a web writer for like a month. Then I got a reporting job, and then they launched morning shows across Canada for CTV. At that point, I was like the only local person that like applied, and they're like, well, we need to have somebody local that knows the names. So at that point, I was hired for their web, traffic, sports, and entertainment job with 3 other hosts. So I had all of those jobs. Roles, which is, I'm going to tell you, if you've never been to Regina, Saskatchewan, doing a traffic report between 6 and 9 a.m. I'm not joking when I say there was one car on the road.
Oh my
So
god.
the emails I would get about that were hilarious. And I still, if people will still remember it a decade later, being like, hey, remember when you gave that traffic report and there was one car on the road? Like, you bet I did. And I can tell you that license plate is blue. I did that for a while, and I was like, at some points I would do the morning sports from 6 to 9 a.m. and then at night we'd be short staffed, so I would also do the evening sports at like 11:30 p.m.
Right. So you're working like around the clock, reporting on everything. You're like,
and it was like, this was great. I couldn't believe I was doing it. And so I'm just going to try to fast forward because there's like 1,000 jobs in between that. And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I actually quit that job, which was at the time viewed as like the top place you could go in Regina if you wanted to be a journalist. And I was like, I have to get out of here. So I moved to Toronto, where I worked at CTV News Channel for like a month. I got a bunch of freelancing jobs working for different music magazines in the States and basketball magazines, all that other stuff. So keep that in mind. When I say get these other jobs, I've always been freelancing on the side. So then after that, I got offered a job at, oh my goodness, I can't remember the name, but it was in Oshawa. And they had a station there that also had a station in Kingston, Ontario, and Peterborough. And I was their main news anchor. Like, my face was all over the Oshawa Generals Arena, which for me is still crazy to think of. And I'm reporting on hard news, like learning why they call the 401 the highway of hell because of human trafficking and all this stuff. And I had to go to school, like stabbings. And then at night, after I'd anchor, I would drive back to Toronto, get to the Raptors pregame, do a story on that, stay at the game and do a post-game story, and then back in like, it's just such a change. And some people love that, but I am not a hard news person. Eventually that station got bought out by Global, and then it became Global Durham, where I worked out of a basement in Global Toronto, where they make it seem like you're live at the station in Durham, but really you're in Toronto.
Okay, yeah.
And then it just didn't work for me. I did not have a great experience there, and I got a job at TSN Radio. And I was like, okay, this is fun. I was producing and working on a basketball show. It's a different environment. But then out of that, I got offered a job at City News, which, being from Saskatchewan, I truthfully did not know a lot about, except for when I went down to Dundas Square. I'm like, oh my gosh. And they're everywhere. Pun intended. Like, that's totally the slogan. But when I went there, I'm like, I don't want to be on TV anymore. I think it's really weird that people know who I am, like, not in a ego way. I'm no different than anybody else. I don't know why they want to talk to me. Like, I'm super awkward and shy. So I would produce news, and we had a sports reporter at the time. And then eventually they saw, like, I have a huge background in writing and reporting on music. I've been covering the Juno Awards. I'm a Juno Award judge, blah, 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 all this other stuff. So they're like, we used to be Much Music.
Right.
Do you want to do local music stories and still produce? So I did that. Eventually, our sports reporter left to go to Sportsnet, and a job came open. They're like, I've already was mixing music and sports together. Like, I'd interview athletes about them being musicians and all this other stuff. So then they gave me that job, and it's, I guess, the only one in Canada that's sports and music. And I'm really lucky that I get to report nationally on it. And then I also report for the BBC and Sportsnet and freelance, and just I love talking about the WNBA and NBA and music and just everything behind it. So that's a really long answer, and probably missing 10 jobs in between that. It's like at one point I even wrote for like our local paper, but it's a long story that has not been easy, but I worked a lot of long hours. I still do, and I volunteered like crazy just to try to get any kind of opportunity.
I love that.
Thanks if you still stuck around after that answer.
I love that so much. Like, you can definitely, like, a few episodes ago, we were talking about how nobody's path is linear. You know what I mean? And, like, what you think you want to do kind of changes as you go. You have to take any experience that you can get to just get your name out there, to make those connections. And then eventually you're going to land where you want to land, you know? And I also think it's so great because at the very beginning of your story, you were like, so many people told me I couldn't do this, and like especially in sports, and it's like,
and I still get told that all the time.
You're like, honey, I made it. Like
really? Come at me.
That's crazy. Yeah. How long have you been at City News now?
I think around 5 years.
Okay.
And there's something like that, and it seems like a moment because I, for the most part, really love my job. Yeah. But it just time, I think, for all of us also in the last 2.5 years has stood still. Yeah. But I think about 5.5 years, which is
that's
just
crazy.
Wild for me.
Yeah. Okay. So our second question for you is going back to, you said people said you couldn't do this because you're a girl. So we know, especially, I guess music too, but sports specifically is very male dominant, from just, you know, the whole organizations, the players, even just talking about it with friends. Like, I find
the media that covers it,
yeah, you're gonna definitely speak more to this, but it is definitely like, you're a girl, you can't like sports. So working in sports, how do you think your work experience has differed from your male colleagues?
Okay, wow, I've never been asked it that way. That is such a great question. Okay.
You're like, where do I start?
Okay, so
I know, and it's kind of a loaded question too.
I'll be honest, and I've never like spoke about this before, and I'll probably get too honest here. So the reason that I have not spoke about this before is because people look at people differently when you talk about either getting sexually assaulted or harassed or having an issue. And I also wanted to protect people. Like, my favorite person in the world was my dad, and he recently passed away, and I just never wanted him to know what happened, because I know he'd be like, I did not protect you, because he knew of one incident, which I will just tell people how I feel like it's differed for me and a lot of women in sports, is because I can almost say 97% of people that are women in this industry that I know have been sexually harassed or assaulted. And I can guarantee that's also like not high enough number that most men that I know work with have not had that experience. And people will say like, you know, get over it or just move on. It's just a comment. For me, the very first time I experienced it, unfortunately, it was not, this has happened other times. It was life-changing for me. My very first job, or I'm going to say one of the first jobs when I worked at different radio stations. And it was a coworker, and they started to text me like sexually inappropriate messages, and I never responded. I was like, oh, this must be a wrong number. And they were married. They are still married, and they have kids. And then they once came into the control room, and then they stood behind me and put their hand down my shirt and grabbed my breasts, which I know like it's crazy thing. And I'm early 20s, very shy, naive. I'm like, what in the world just happened? And we're alone in the station because it's like late night shift. I'm like, what do you even do? So then they leave. I'm like, did that just happen? Yeah. And just like brushed it off. I'm like, I must be dreaming. I must be crazy. And then the second time came in, they came into the room and closed the door and put a chair behind it. And I won't go into
Oh my gosh.
And they pushed me against the wall and covered my mouth and said inappropriate things and touched me inappropriately. I'm just going to try to like fast forward through this because like, I don't want to get emotional right now. And I don't.
Of course.
And I'm just like, what is happening right now? And I just remember, and I still like cannot get that moment out of my head. But then they leave and I'm terrified. Like, what just happened? What gave them, like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And I remember telling my boss about it and they're mortified. Like, they couldn't believe it. And the good thing is, like, this is way before the Me Too movement. All
Yeah.
Fully believe me. Because, like, why would I ever just say something like this? They told their bosses about it and be like, we have proof. Like, we have all these texts as well. Like, we need to keep them safe. So next shift, nothing is said. They give me a moment, but I remember that the manager went and had a lock put on my door. And this is just for me crazy because I cannot get this out of my mind. Is I locked the door, and I remember that night that man trying to get into that room over and over and over, and like, let me open the door. And just, I'm in this radio station by myself and I'm shaking and I don't know what to do. I don't know who to call because also you say something. This is before my career's even started and I'm told by this person, I will ruin you. I will destroy you. And all I ever wanted to do was work in my hometown. So I'm going to have this reputation already of this person and like they could have been charged. And then all of that going through the courts and my hair fell out. I was so stressed and terrified by this. And then hey, it happens to another girl and it's brought forward. And this is none of us talking to each other.
Yeah.
So what they eventually do, instead of firing this person, is punish me by moving me to a morning shift. That is a terrible shift. I had to call that guy the next day and have him on the show. And when I picked it up, he's like, F you, B word, put me on. And so I put them through. They actually make like terrible comments about me on air and whatever they're supposed to talk about the sporting event that night. Then hang up. I'm like, is this why is this happening? I'm like, this can't be. What did I do wrong? What did I do? And why? Like,
and why are you the one who's moved from covering the stories you want to cover? Like, you know,
completely punished. So then eventually it happens to a third girl. And I'm mad at this point because they're only like a year younger than me, but I'm protective. I'm like, if I would have said something sooner, they wouldn't have had to go through what I had to go through. Like, I'm going crazy at this time. Like, so they eventually fire him, but to protect us, don't say why. So there's articles written in the paper about like, oh, can you believe they got rid of this? Such a stupid thing. People are calling into the station, yelling at me on the phone because I had to field the call saying about how dumb it was for them to get rid of this person. Like, if they only knew for 10 years later, like at the time I was engaged to somebody else and not my husband I have now. I couldn't let them hug me. I couldn't go near anybody. I constantly lived in fear. I completely changed the way that I dress, like, which, if people come at people for saying you deserved it for the way you're dressed, like, I wore dresses, that's it. They weren't low cut, but like, I always wore sweaters and blazers. Like, I was terrified of people. It made me I have not sang to this day, which clearly it took my voice away. And my next job, I had someone that I work with, another male coworker that was in sports, create a website counting down the days to when I was supposed to get married with a picture he photoshopped of him, like it was a porn scene, my face and someone else. And it aggressively was like counting down to when I'm going to F her in the A. And I have pictures when I'm sitting there and I'm trying to read sports and he tried to put his hand up my skirt and I took a picture of it and I went and told my boss, this is a different workstation. Like, and at this point, I'm like, honestly, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing to, like, at this point, I'm still very shy. I wasn't very outgoing. And I was still like traumatized from what happened the first time. And they're like, okay, what do you want? I'm like, I'm just letting you know because I don't feel safe. And I know another coworker doesn't. I don't want you to say anything. I just need people to be aware so that maybe there's more people in the room. Okay, this boss, livid, is like, okay, you have my word. But went and told HR went and told them. Next day I came into work, my stuff was all over the floor. I didn't know that they told them. Ripped me a new one up and down. It treated me like crap. It treated the other female coworker, like garbage. I was like, what is this? So at this point, like, I've done something so wrong in my life where I'm portraying myself in the worst way, but like also not that it justifies. I mean, like, I never talk sexual to them or anything. What is happening? But both time sports reporters. So at this point, I've gone crazy. I've didn't get married, like it wasn't meant to be, but then like eventually I meet my husband now, and he sees kind of what's happening. I'm like, I need to move.
Yeah.
Like there's no other place I actually can work. I can't cover sports here. There's only 2 sports teams.
Yeah.
So I moved to Toronto, where unfortunately I've had experiences like that here too, and other people have. And I could go on probably for another half an hour about how bad it is when I'm sitting in a locker room. So it's not just sports reporters. An athlete will think it's funny to come stand beside me when I'm interviewing their teammate and drop their pants. Now, this has happened more than a few times. And if we like, I can be funny about it and be like, it was a really chilly day in that locker room for that guy. Or like I'm friendly. Like I really like to tell the whole story of somebody's personality, be like, hey, what music do you like? Or just like, how did your day start? Or whatever. And they take my being friendly as flirtatious. And then I'll get DMs of their junk. Or just other thing. And I guarantee, back to the question,
That's crazy.
I know my male coworkers are not getting that.
Yeah.
And it's just like comments for like, oh, sports, sweetie, or like nice legs or anything. And it's just like the touching is one thing, because that lasts with people for their life.
Yeah.
And people do not understand. They're like, whatever, like, why didn't you tell anybody? Like, unless you're in that situation, it doesn't matter. Don't judge people on that.
Yeah.
But it's just not easy being a woman in sports. And when I say that, like, I don't want people to be like, oh, you can't talk to her, you can't bring it up, which is a fear, because I don't want people to think that they have to be super on edge or on guard if I'm talking to a male athlete. Or because for the most part, the athletes aren't that bad. Like, it's even management throughout major sports league, or like PR people will all be inappropriate. So in certain leagues and teams, it's a culture that you think would have changed since the Me Too movement. But I'm telling you, like, the last 2 years for me, I feel like it's regressed. It's just, it's a free for all that they feel like they can do what they want, because for the most part, I know the male counterparts, if they don't have to worry about saying something. If I were to say something about any of the players or reporters that would do that, we all know I'd get put on that stake.
Yeah. There's a double standard for sure.
Absolutely. And then if we go on the lighter note, I have to know everything a million times more than an athlete.
Yes.
Or not an athlete, like my male counterparts. And I screw up all the time, and I will own it, but I will get like 1,000 emails compared to their one.
Yeah.
And I love to tell stories in a different way. I want to know the personality. And because I do that, they're like, you're a dumb woman. This is why women should not do sports. And you're sleeping with the players and all this. And I also can guarantee that most of the male like counterparts, their spouses are on social media and they have photos of them. I will not post about my husband on my social media, because people will reach out to me like, your wife is hot, which, like, I try to be nice, like, thank you, that's a really nice compliment. Like, I brush my hair sometimes, but they'll be like, your wife is sleeping with this musician or this athlete, or did you see how they're looking at that, or like, you're so lucky to have her. And I'm like, I'm lucky that I'm married to him. Like, this guy is awesome. So that's a really long answer, and I could go on forever. It's just, it's not all doom and gloom, but it's not easy. Like, every day it's a struggle, and some things will just set me off because I'll have a great connection with someone that I think like we're friends, because also like, everyone's my friend. We're all happy in life, because I'm very much like a happy person. And then they'll reach out being like, do you want to go on a date? And like, I mentioned my husband like 6 times in the interview. What? Like, I'll totally go and hang out with you as friends. We can be best friends. Where did you even get the vibes that I'd be interested in you? So I'm like, I don't know. So I also feel bad for like women out there that are like those drop dead gorgeous women on TV that are just so charismatic. Like, they're getting it a million times worse. But there you go. There's a big bombshell. Enjoy digesting that, everybody.
I feel though you nailed it right on the head, and this is kind of like the thoughts I had, but I just couldn't properly like word it, was like, it's still very much like a man's world regardless of the industry, you know what I mean? Like, we've had episodes in the past talking about Tegan and I's work experience as well. It hasn't been to that extreme, but like you said, sports, it's so deep rooted in the sports culture, and that I think is exactly what I was like thinking without even knowing how to word it. And I feel like it just makes it, I don't know. Like,
I'll put it out there too, though. The music industry is also terrible for women, and it's like, there's a gentleman that owns a record label that I have no idea to this day why he decides to message me inappropriate things. And like, they're married, they have kids, and just like, I remember them sending me pictures of them naked in their hot tub and being like, I want to naked wrestle with you.
Oh my God.
And this is after I interviewed one of their artists, and I actually never met them.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
what?
Yeah.
And
Why is this?
and-
why does anybody think
yeah.
this is okay? Like,
Well, yeah.
yeah,
Period.
And
Yeah.
that's like, is it because, and I've, see, this is like, let's like
Yeah,
get into
try it.
psychology and figure this out. I'm like, is it because I'm shy and they know, or something, like why I feel like sometimes I'm being preyed on, but then when you talk to anybody else, like,
Yeah.
they're no matter if they're outspoken or not.
Yeah.
So I think the music industry for women, like female artists,
yeah.
it's not great for
Yeah.
them, because it's, although like you can look, hey, there's so many females out there, they're doing PR or they're doing this, they're getting like, it's not easy on anything. So it's like, not to be all
Yeah.
doom and gloom, but I guess it is pretty doom and gloom. We just
Yeah.
have to figure out how to change it. And it's just so unfortunate that after the Me Too movement, that really not a lot has changed, because they can say,
Yeah.
hey, we're hiring somebody in this position, or we're hiring more women.
Mhm.
But what are you doing to actually protect them and make sure it's okay for them to speak up, or make sure that they can just do their freaking job?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've found, maybe this is just my own personal experience, but I found post Me Too movement, now every single workplace I've joined, there's been a conversation of like, watch out for this guy when he's drinking. But it's posed as a positive, because
Yeah.
they're letting you know as soon as they hire you.
Yeah.
So then it's
and that's
almost
everywhere.
like
And,
open.
And
Yeah.
it totally, because
Yeah.
even there's some teams that I will cover, or that be like, watch out for that reporter, they're flirty, or, you know,
Yeah.
just, or in general, watch out for that player. I'm like, why am I watching out for them? Why aren't you
Yeah.
talking to them?
Yeah.
Like, what in the flying hell
Yeah.
is
It's like they're
happening?
acknowledging it,
It's
but
a
they're not
pass.
actually changing anything.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just like, and this is every workplace, because they're
Mhm.
like, we have a, you know, protection for you, that you can come forward and you can talk about it, but
Yeah.
you can't, because when you do, the fallout from it, it's just like, it's really not that hard to not be a dirtbag, I find, on
Yeah.
both ends, because I know that there are male like reporters and athletes and that they get groped
Yeah.
by women. That's, so it's not just that, but it's just, we all know it's like, it's so much worse for women, and it's just,
I think it's probably more normal for women. You
it
know,
is,
Yeah,
like
and we've
yeah.
kind of accepted it, because
Yeah.
like there's like this sisterhood for so many of us in sports reporters that we
Yeah.
bond over it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or even like,
That's fucked up.
it is. What do you think? It totally is. And
Yeah.
it's just like, we're accepting this. And recently I was talking to a fellow like colleague, like, what can we even do? Because somebody like weirdly like massaged her shoulder that is within
Yeah.
a professional sports team, and they're a reporter like, what? Why are they even touching you?
Yeah.
And just like, I think it was meant friendly. I'm like, yeah, but no.
Yeah. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
like, hands off.
Yeah.
I also like,
Mhm.
even before that stuff happened at the radio station, like, not the most huggy person. So I think like, it is messed up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, it'll leave me speechless, because like, I'll just think about it, and then I think about other people's stories, or just some musicians, like female musicians, like the crap that they have
Yeah.
to go
Mhm.
through.
Yeah.
It's like-
Definitely.
Yeah. Sometimes you forget, I think, as a woman, that that's not normal too. I find
Yeah.
sometimes I'll tell a story to a male coworker and see their face like drop. Like, I was once grabbed on the street walking home from yoga, and I was like, the craziest thing happened last night. This guy grabbed me, and I could see as he was like, that's not normal. But then it's
Yeah.
like you almost come to expect it,
Yeah.
which is bad.
Also fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm just here calling out
Yeah.
all this stuff is fucked up.
Thank you, Sadie.
Yeah.
Yep, that's effed up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I don't know. And honestly, Lindsay, before we even move on to the next question, thank you for being so honest about this, because I feel like it does unite like women, which is sad, like we were talking about, like, but people listening who have maybe had something similar happen to them, like,
Yeah.
just hearing this, you know, and even you said how at some points you internalized it as, what am I doing wrong? You know what I mean? And if you're not actually talking about these things, it's
And I
easy to
Yeah.
spiral and be like, this is my fault. But I feel like by talking about things and being so open about it, if you're a listener listening to this and you're like, this has happened to me too, maybe it's not my fault. You know what I mean? Like if this is happening to more people and whatever, I don't know. It's good to have conversation about it.
No, I appreciate you guys letting me speak about it too, but it is true, because like even sometimes still when things happen, like what did I do wrong? And and that's like, you can get all the help they want. They're like, it's not your fault, Lindsay, or whoever's listening. Like most like, and it's just trying to get over it. And I can't, like, you nailed it on the head. It's effed up.
Yeah.
And it's like every day almost there's something that happened, and when it happens, that's just a really inappropriate comment. I actually don't check my DMs, and I don't have a lot of followers on social media. I'm not great at social media, but I stopped after a while because the comments were either just so rude or so creepy. Like there's a lot of wonderful people out there, like great story, or you seem nice. I'm like, that's really, I'm like, if you think that I'm a nice person, like shout out to Bill Dunn, because anything that I do is because of my dad. But it's just nonstop, and I just do not understand where people get off on some of this stuff, like to criticize people. So when people say, you're listening now and you're like, you see somebody on TV, and I hear this a lot, they'll be like, that girl dresses like a hoe, or, you know, you were showing a lot of leg, or you screwed up, or you think there's every single person in the world, whatever they're doing is going through something. Just take that negativity and shove it.
No, like we're all human. Like even the people on TV. Like, can you imagine that?
Like what, they have feelings, and it's
they're
like,
real. They're human.
And like so many times, like within the last 5 years at City, there's been many instances where right before I went live, somebody's either said something to me that was just like like aggressive, such as like, I'm gonna bend you over and have my way with you, and that's me putting it PG.
Oh my goodness.
And that was an athlete that once said that to me before I went on air, or like somebody that worked in sports like groped me before I went on air, and I'm just like, what do you even do? What do you even do? And it's like, you're constantly surrounded by men, and for the most part, honestly, I'm friends with way more guys than I am girls, but it's just, I think this for anybody is like, somebody's always going through something you don't know about, so just be 100%. Kind. Like that's where we all can start, by also not being a dirtbag.
That too.
That's a big one.
I don't think that's like definitely a huge one, people. So
I don't think our listeners are dirtbags.
No, not at all. I'm just saying, can you pass that along?
Yes,
If that's, you know somebody, like, can you stop being a dirtbag, because that's effed up.
That's what we're trying to say.
They're the kind people.
Yes,
so that's good.
They're actually on your social media right now, lifting you up.
I appreciate it.
We have an awesome social media community.
You do.
So they're over there. They're hyping you up.
I want to believe that.
But that's like another thing. Let's just go randomly on another side tangent. It's something I learned early in my career is I used to have to do entertainment as well and be like, who wore this better? Like, why in the world am I tearing somebody down? Because that's their personal fashion choice. So it has taken me like 9 years to, when I look at something, like try to think positive first, being like, good for them. They did it. And it's also like great for your mindset, because social media is a dumpster fire. Like hot trash is not being jealous or anything when you see something, or trying not to be critical first. And I've but pretty much since I was little, I've been more positive, half glass full kind of person. But like that's been a huge changer. And I learned that in my first year of like, why am I talking about somebody who don't know's fashion choice that's so personal? Or even with music, there's a lot of music that's not my personal taste, but I'll still interview them because somebody loves it. They love it. They have passion. But it's like, it's one thing is like, just that I learned was just try not also to be a jerk, and try to like, for anybody's mental health, is try to always switch your mind so it's a positive note first, which I know is hard.
So the next question we had is semi-related, and it's, how do you in your day-to-day try and overcome these biases? Because like we've been saying, it's kind of an unavoidable part of being a working woman, unfortunately. And so what do you do to try and survive? That sounds dark, but
no the thing is, like, that's true. It is survival. And oh my goodness, I know this answer will probably like enrage people, because, or not, I don't know how to deal with it, because sometimes I try to be like, hey, it's nice that they think that you are somewhat good looking in their minds. Like they have thousands of women throwing themselves at them, or a woman and or man or whatever, and they for some reason think that you're not that bad. Like that's pretty nice. Like you're doing okay. You're doing okay. I'm like, okay, great. And
that's you being a glass half full type of person.
Yeah. Like, and I know that's like a weird thing to say. Like you should be flattered, but because I just don't talk about this a lot, because anytime honestly women talk about like, oh, it's so hard in sports or music or covering this, like the amount of garbage emails and hate mail that we get is insane. But whatever, I'm just gonna put it out there. But so that's one way I deal with it, which I know I don't recommend for a lot of people, but it does help me just move on for it. Sometimes I just straight out will rage, and I'm not an angry person. Like I just scream because I will get a message after I interview somebody, and I think we have such a connection as like humans, like as friends. I'm like, that is great. And then I'm like, where in the hell did that come from? And that's pretty much as high as my voice gets. So that's me angry, and so I'll do that. But I have a really supportive husband, and I try not to tell him a lot of it because it makes him angry that people will say that to him. But sometimes I'll just feel like, I need to talk to you about this. But I try to move on from it and just think like the fact that they think it's okay to talk to me that way is they're stupid and they're going to get caught somewhere down the line, or they're very unhappy. And I feel for them because that's their choice, or just I feel sad for them sometimes. Definitely. Whatever the thing is, because I'm like, man, you have all of this stuff that's viewed as positive in your mind, and yet you're out here, you must be a little sad, or just your ego is that big. And I just try to move on for it. It's just like, it's thankfully it's been a while since somebody like physically like it's dark but violated me. I don't know how else to put that, but like those things, like you have to speak to somebody, you have to get help. But the day-to-day stuff, I try to think like, that's really nice, but like not gonna happen. But wow, like great, my hair's looking great today, on to the next. And I just like, and I like it's not a really good answer because I have not figured out how to deal with it, because and then when it's just also when you see it happening to somebody else you care about, I just like, how can I protect you from this happening? And then that's that. And then I also just try to make change. And I know that sounds silly, but I was like, okay, if this is how this certain like sport's going to be and the mentality around it, well, I have my own platform and I'm my own sports department. Well, why am I not showing more women? So then I was like, well, a change that I can do to deal with this, I can damn well showcase all these badass women are out there that are not getting time. And that's another way that I deal with it is like, if we also normalize having more women on TV and more women talking about sports and more women in sports, then you would hope. And that is where I'm going to say, like, I believe in that hope, because I know, like, like given the track record, it's not great, but you got to start somewhere. And that's a way to deal with it, is I just, Do you find at one point you said something about how being a woman in sports, you need to know more than your male colleagues and all that stuff. Do you find how you deal with it is you do more research too, or to like give yourself less room for error kind of thing? Or then, even how you dress. Like, do you think when you're getting dressed, are you thinking this is appropriate, or like this can't be? And you know what? That's a great point, because male counterparts, for the most part, don't have to deal with that. So for about 10 years, all I wore were blazers and pants. And like, if anybody knows me, I hate pants because I'm lazy. I like to wear dresses. It is the easiest thing
and you
ever.
Look put together. Like,
and it's like,
one and done.
And you're not. So I absolutely only wore that because I'm like, I will not be taken professional. Like, I will not be taken that I know anything about this sport. And for like 10 years, and now for the last 5 years, I'm like, screw it. If you have a problem with me wearing a vegan mini skirt and high heels or a bright shirt, like, that's your problem. That is your view in life. And if you treat me different, because I'm feeling great today, but I will second guess the crap out of myself, because that is how I've been made to feel. Is that you don't know this. And then like every time, like right before I go in here, I'm like, okay, is that really, has it been 6 straight games that they haven't lost at home in the playoffs, or this,
Yeah,
and then
second
it gets
guess
in
yourself.
your head
Yeah.
all the time. And I know I'm not alone in that.
Yeah.
And it's all the time, but I will research sometimes for hours just for one question to triple, quadruple check and then go do that. And again, sad thing, not alone in that. And I think that's for most women in any career.
Yeah.
And it's just
like, I think dressing is a big thing. Like I do that in my job too. Like more so at my last job where the team was primarily men. But if I had a big important meeting, like I'm doing full makeup, I'm doing a blazer, I'm doing, like I'm gonna be that boss ass bitch in the room because that's when I'm not wearing makeup, not wearing a blazer, but like that's like you need to like kind of play into it, even though it's not fair. You know what I mean? But that's kind of how I've dealt with it on the day to day. Is just okay. Then I'll just dress the part. Versus I don't know. I'm kind of losing my train of thought.
No, that's so true. Like I have a closet full of suits and that because when you wear that, people treat you differently because they think of you differently, which is such part of my language bullshit. It does not matter what you wear. Like well, I'm like, don't wear sweatpants. To if you're on TV, like you just in general, like you shouldn't be doing that. But and that's honestly like here's the word, like that's what society makes us feel like we need to be be taken seriously. So like we will all change that slowly, but I'm not going on TV without makeup.
Fair enough.
Very fair.
So what's one way that Sadie and I and our listeners can do more to support and empower women in sports?
Ooh.
Yeah, you talked about using your platform. How can we use ours?
Well, one, it's really nice for you to share your platform to let me ramble on about like I feel bad because like I'm usually not this negative and I realize it's shocking for people to hear still to this day how effed up, as you would say, this industry is, and it's like it's brutal. I kind of mentioned this before, but I think it's a huge thing is if women support sports teams that have women on there, and I know or if you just somebody spends like 2 seconds just googling WNBA team or anything, just give it a chance because for the most part on the major sports stations they don't have them on there. They're not getting it. And if we show them a little bit of support, it shows that there are people out there interested, or just I know like everybody has a million things to do, but there's so many amazing talented female athletes out there that for me I'm like it's one thing
that's the other thing. I'm sorry, but like even the players, like if you watch women's basketball, they like are so much more skilled. It's so much faster. They're like so much fancier. Like they are way more skilled than men.
The questions they get asked because they're female in sports makes me want to rage.
Oh
Tara Sloan, who works for Sportsnet, she hosts this thing called Top of Her Game, which like she created, which is all about like showcasing women in different positions like across sports. I love her for that. And that's like a huge thing is when you mentioned like you know the pace and all that of the game is like they're just they have not to work given a chance, and they have to work so much harder. They have to be grinding because they're not getting that spotlight. So all I'm just saying for anybody, listen, WNBA season started May 6th. You could try that. There's also a phenomenal softball teams across North America. There's our soccer team or Canada soccer team won gold at the Olympics, the hockey, anything.
Sorry to bring that up for American listeners.
Sorry,
just kidding.
I'm
sorry.
Have amazing...
Okay, sorry. Let's move on.
But you also have amazing hockey players that are female on that. But it's like there's just so many. Like there's so many amazing tennis players. Why they're female? Like just for a second, try to just even look up great female athletes, top female athletes, whatever you want to do. That. And I know this is so cheesy, but just it's hard because we're pitted against each other all the time. Let's stop doing that. I know women do it to women. Like the women in sports, some of them are really nice, but some of them are the cattiest mofos I've ever met. I'm like, why? And like when they give me attitude, I'm like, I am not trying to take your job. If you're trying to take mine, good for you. If you get it, that's good for you. But I'm not going to let you and your attitude and your negativity try to bring me down because there's no reason. Just because there's only 2 women in this room out of the 60 men. Let's let's unite. Let's talk. Let's have fun.
That should bring you together.
And like in some ways there are like that happens rather. Like there's a reporter named Cindy. She works and covers the Leafs in Toronto, and just like immediately when she saw me, she's like, "Hi, how are you? I'm Cindy." Or Hazel May from the Toronto Blue Jays, who gets way too much hate mail for no reason at all. And I see people heckle her at the game.
Oh gosh,
nicest person in the world. I went to the Blue Jays thing for the first time years ago, and it's very, very intimidating when you walk in and it's mostly men, or just in general, it's a major sports team, and you're like, so green. She walked up immediately and was like, "Hi, I'm Hazel." I'm like, "I absolutely know who you are, Hazel." And was so warm and accepting, and she does that to like every reporter. But it's like supporting people like her. I don't understand the hate she gets, and a lot of it's because she's a woman and just the garbage. But so back to the question is, try to like see what females are out there playing and like what leagues there are, because they're not getting that representation. But also not saying your listeners would do this, but maybe other people are, and maybe people who know it, is just try not to immediately judge the woman on TV that might be a reporter. Not only are they going through something, but we all know most of us have earned our way there, and we're trying just like everybody else in their job. So like try to be positive, but number one thing is support the female athletes. That's my number one concern, because they work their whole life for this and constantly get shit on. And they are elite. So let's try to change that.
100%. Amazing. Okay, well, speaking of elite athletes, even musicians, we have a fun question for you. And also, I need to say, I was creeping you hard before we started recording.
I'm creeping you hard.
I was creeping you hard, and I love your fun questions. Like the questions you were saying that people like shit on you on.
Oh, the hate mail.
And like
doesn't bother me. People come at me.
Yeah, and they think it's like flirtatious. I'm always like, Lindsay asks the most fun questions. How are we going to interview her? Because our questions are like so standard. I was like,
my
hey,
face is bright red.
She's
right
queen of fun questions. We need a fun question. So this is our attempt at a fun question. Who have you been the most starstruck by? Could be an athlete. Actually, we want one athlete and one musician.
Oh, can I say Maud the cat?
That's Tegan's cat.
Look at her.
It's a cat giving me a mad death stare right now, and I'm terrified of cats. So okay, starstruck. Okay, so athlete, I think I will say this forever, is Magic Johnson. I still can't believe I met Magic Johnson.
That's
I can't
amazing.
Tell you how much.
Well, we know that Magic Johnson was the one that inspired this whole thing. So that's amazing that you got to meet him.
I realize like there's choices in his life that are different than mine, but the personality he has, he made me fall in love with basketball, because
I'm getting chills right now.
And fun to it. And he just like, I don't want to use the word magic, but it was like music on the court when he would play, and he just was so joyful, and he brings that to life still, considering like a lot of things that he's went through, like wives. I met him, and at the end of the interview, he's like, "Lindsay Dunn, everyone." And I'm still smiling. And this has been like 12 years ago that I'm like, holy yes, I'm going to swear, holy Magic Johnson just said my name. Like I'm still starstruck by it. And I've seen him a couple times at Lakers games and that when I've covered it, and I can't even look at him because I admire the joy that he brings to life, and the joy he brought to the game.
Yeah.
So like
you even talking about it is bringing joy to the podcast.
Oh,
like, so
like,
good.
Raptors rookie Scotty Barnes, huge Magic Johnson fan, and just that joy. So like I love talking to him about it and looking at him and like the joy he brings to that. It's like, you're a little magic, and I'm here for people to be inspired and starstruck by him. Just like the most adorable little human ever. Okay, starstruck by a musician.
I saw you were recently talking to Lizzo. That was pretty sick.
Like, I want just an ounce of her confidence.
Right?
Like, first of all, I felt so confident after interviewing her. Like, she has the line, "It's bad o'clock" in her new song. And, like, I'm just singing that anytime I walk into a room. Like,
that's actually going to be the title of this podcast episode.
It's bad bitch o'clock.
It's bad bitch o'clock.
Like, what a line. And I told her, it was like, I sing that in my head now when I walk into things that I'm not feeling the most confident in.
Yes.
Yeah, just
so good.
Oh my gosh. Oh, so this is not, I don't even know how to say this, because like I don't want to sound vain or anything. Like I've been really lucky. Like Lizzo, I've interviewed like Lorde, Ed Sheeran, Keith Richards, Ringo Starr. Every time after I interview somebody, I feel a little starstruck, and I'm not usually going into it because I'm so like, this is nerdy, inspired by what they did or how they created it. Oh my goodness. I, for now, might go with Dolly Parton.
Ooh, Tegan's into this. She's
Okay.
like,
We
tell
love
us the
Dolly.
details.
So I will give you the details of how sweaty my palms were. Because like I think like I'm forgetting people, but there's been so many moments where I just can't believe that this is happening to me. Like
Yeah.
I'm from what people would consider a small town Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And
Even we think that as fellow Canadians. We're like, oh, Saskatchewan?
from
You're
small
from
towns.
Saskatchewan?
yeah. And they're like, how's the combine today? But now I'm just like, wow, I'm gonna get all philosophical and reminiscent, but it's just
Yeah.
I can't like I hate talking about myself, so this is weird. I've worked really, really, really hard to get where I am, and I still continue to work really hard. And I, like everybody else, like have put up with a lot of crap that I did not like. For a moment, it almost took me down, but it's like it's not. So the fact that I've interviewed so many of these people, or they
Yeah.
want to talk to me, like
yeah.
what?
Girl,
Why?
yeah.
Like it's wild to me. Or like sometimes I become friends now with people that I've interviewed, and I just am grateful that those conversations have happened, because like something I'll be so passionate about, I'm like, yeah, they don't care. They're like, oh, me too. This is the
Yeah.
best thing
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
But okay, I'll go back. I'll just say Dolly. I just can't remember anybody now because I love
Yeah.
everybody. And that's the
Yeah.
worst thing after. Like, oh, I need to buy everybody's record.
Yeah.
Or I need to
Yeah.
go buy their jersey.
Yeah.
And I also want to add like Sue Bird to being starstruck. I think that was the two. Sue Bird, when I interviewed
Yeah.
her over Zoom, and I remember telling her I looked like the Hamburglar in the interview because I was so nervous because I was wearing stripes. Because like she's a goat, she's a legend,
Yeah.
she is
Yeah.
just amazing in everything she stands for. And I just want everyone to know that I accidentally just played footsie.
I was like, is there a cat? I was like, again, watching for the
Okay.
cats.
Okay, so but Dolly Parton, I was interviewing her and Barry Gibb. Like we're talking Bee Gees. Like
my
this is
goodness.
insane. And they did a duet, and I'm on Zoom, and it says like Barry Gibb, Dolly Parton, City News interview, and I am like, my hands were like pools of sweat, and I have never experienced that before. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting in like my place by myself, and like, this can't be real. This can't be real. I have 40,000 questions I want to ask them. And as soon as it turns on, they're like, hi, Lindsay. Like, holy, Dolly Parton just said my name. Magic Johnson said it 12 years ago. Like, really? And like, they were so engaged in the conversation, and they treat you like humans, because really at the end of the day, like, although I hate pants, we all put on our pants the exact same way for the most part. Some people have people help them put them on, so that high maintenance. But she was just lovely and everything you want them to be. But
Yeah.
mostly I'm just terrified before I interview anybody. But Dolly, Magic, and Sue have been the three I can say I've actually been starstruck over.
Yeah.
And the only
I
other
love
one
that.
that I think it would happen would be Ricky Martin, which I've been putting those vibes out since 1999, living La Vida Loca. And like, it's one of those things that anybody that I work with knows, like, if he comes to town, don't let her near him. I was like, yes. But like, the fun question, I have so much fun seeing the other side of people's personalities with them.
Yeah.
And then like, if I get hate mail for it, I don't care. But in that moment, they're either going to hate the question or
Yeah.
we're going to get a different answer.
Yeah.
So thanks.
I love it.
for asking.
Oh, yeah. That's so good. And I love that, of course, like the beginning part of this like episode, yes, you were like, this is my truth. But I feel like this is like why you continue to do it, because you love what you do. We can tell you love what you do. You get to meet all these amazing people, which is really, really exciting. And yeah, you're killing it. You definitely
Yeah.
have worked very hard too, and you should be so proud of yourself. We're so proud of you. Just
Yeah.
like,
That's
I
fine.
learned so much about you tonight, and I'm just like, damn.
No, like it's fun, and that's I don't want to discourage people from this industry, but I also want to discourage them for this industry, and I'm very protective anytime like someone reaches out. I will always try to help somebody. Like I get close to
Yeah.
1,000 emails a day, so I miss everything. If someone being like, oh, can I get an internship, or can you teach me this? Or I'm like, well, I'll
Right.
try to help you shoot your demo or edit it, because it's a really hard industry to get in. But it's just, unfortunately, keep your backup.
Yeah.
But also try not to let it destroy you. But like
Yeah.
people are like, oh, you show up, you have your hair done and makeup done, and people buy your clothes. I'm going to tell you, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I do my own hair. It looks unbrushed most of the time. I do my own makeup. Don't know how to do it. Been taught multiple times how to do it for TV, and I dress myself. Well, like most people dress themselves. By that
Yeah.
I mean I pick
Yeah.
my own clothes.
Yeah,
on TV. But I will work most days, like sometimes 7 a.m. until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. because if an artist, I try to interview anybody that's an artist because they're trying really hard. And
Mhm.
TV stations, there's less and less. There's less
Yeah.
print. There's less radio. And like there's wonderful podcasts like this, which give people opportunities. But I want to make sure I also put the respect in to research them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I was like, I like to tell people that it's not a 9 to 5 job. For some of my like people that work in this industry, absolutely, it's like a 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. job. They just show up and they're like,
For your male colleague.
this
No, I'm
is
just
it.
kidding. We don't.
Some
We
of
won't
them-
go there again.
Some of them, absolutely. Like some of them have, they'll have everything, all their questions researched for them. They will ask those
Oh my
questions. They won't
goodness.
know anything about the artist or the athlete. And I'm like, I just can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And it's
Yeah.
not like because I'm a woman, it's like, don't you want to know who you're talking to or anything
Yeah.
about them?
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't say you don't have time because none of us have time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like, yeah, there's a lot of bad things
Yeah.
about anything, but I realize I'm really lucky and I love the crap out of my job. Like,
Yeah.
and sports and music for the most part, it unites a lot of people. And
Yeah.
they have very strong opinions about it. Like someone recently told me that they thought Prince was the greatest guitar player of all time. And I was like, are you trying to fight me right now? And like, those are conversations you randomly have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, no, I love my job. And I'm always like, I don't know how long it will last or how long I will be here. But for the moment, I'm going to enjoy
Soak it up. Yeah. Amazing.
Love it.
Yeah. I feel like
Mic
that's
drop.
all the questions we had for you today.
Well, I
Yeah.
will tell you about the album I'm going to release next year. Just kidding.
Featuring
I was
Lizzo.
like, that's
Featuring
actually.
actually the Holy Gamblers. There's this great lead singer named Duncan, who I've been trying to get to do a duet with me. And I want to do the song 9 to 5,
Mm.
but he won't have anything. So anybody listening, please go follow the Holy Gamblers on social media and say you need to do a duet with Lindsay Dunn. Let's make this happen.
This
Start
is
a
your
hashtag.
start a hashtag. Love it. And this is the life goal. You wanted to be a sports and music journalist.
Yeah.
Check. You wanted to be a singer.
Well,
Pretty
make
sure
it
that's your
happen.
next.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is what's
The
going to
next thing we're
happen.
gonna help.
The song, I'm going to be like, we're not working 9 to 5. It's every other freaking hour. Barely
You're
getting
like,
by.
I have a plan,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Duncan, make this happen.
Oh my goodness.
Don't you dare edit that out.
If only he listened to the
No,
podcast.
but see, here's the thing, for real. Go follow the Holy Gamblers and put on them. You need to do a duet with Lindsay Dunn, 9
Yeah.
to 5. Thank
Done.
you.
Do it.
Done and done.
Well, done
Yeah.
and done. That could be
Holy
your
Gamblers,
birthday.
our Golden 20s, Lindsay Dunn
Collab.
collab.
I'm buying
Done.
that shirt.
And with that, we're gonna drop our mics.
My hands are sweaty.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. We drop a new episode every single Tuesday. In between episodes, you can find us on social media. We are at our Golden 20s on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, Facebook, and we also have some Spotify playlists. And lastly, we are on Patreon, which is the best way to support the podcast for as little as $2 a month. So go check it out. Until then, we will see you guys next Tuesday.
Bye. Thanks for having me.